Hi, Jeremy here with Isaac. Hi, Isaac.
Hello.
We're going to do a first look at a new real-time updating web development system today, which is currently called Pusher. I don't know if it's going to keep that name or not. It's part of FastHTML, and we're going to combine it with a project that Isaac's been working on, which brings something called Franken UI into FastHTML as well. And Isaac, I don't think we've done a video about Franken UI before, is that right? So if not,
Yeah, that's right. This will be the first look.
okay, cool. So maybe we should just rewind a bit. I'm sharing my screen. So there's a project that probably a lot of folks know about called fh-frankenui, which is a React-based GUI development library to create GUIs like these. And there are versions of it also for Svelte and for Vue. They're obviously all kind of lock you in a little bit to some particular framework. But then there's one that is vanilla.js, which is cool, called Franken UI, which is just, vanilla JavaScript. And as you can see, looks very similar, but does not require using Vue or React or anything like that. It's, I guess, if I was to look at the source code to that page, actually better still would probably be to look at the inspect for that page. So there's still a lot of classes and whatnot involved in using Franken UI, which we figured we could simplify a whole lot. So Isaac has created this library called fh-frankenui. So that's what we're going to start looking at, which is obviously very early days for it at this point. Great. So maybe we'll start by looking at how to use it with regular FastHTML show and stuff, and then I can show the new stuff. So we'll introduce one new thing at a time. So Isaac, you sent me your draft website code, I guess. And so is there something we wanted us to start working on here?
Yeah, let's open up the blog card notebook.
Okay, right. It looks like this whole next section is commented out. So are we ignoring that bit?
If we're using the show, we will need that. Those are going to be the CDNs to do it. If we're using the pusher, then we shouldn't.
Okay,
so let's uncomment that.
Comment that. So tell us about this cell.
So the HTML cell in a Jupyter notebook allows you to put HTML there, which will be live in your environment. And so you could still run, all the code, and it'll generate the HTML. But any of the classes that are applied to an HTML, if they're styled with any of these CDNs like Tailwind or the Franken UI, the UI kit stuff, then it will not render with the nice styling of Franken UI.
Cool. And so for those who haven't seen this before, %HTML basically inserts the exact HTML into your DOM. So you can see it here in your DOM. So it's not like simulating anything. This is actually put the actual script tags into the actual web page. So you've got a style sheet for Franken WC. Oh, that's Franken Web Components, I guess, is it, or something? So that's the Franken UI.
Yep, they got a few web components. These are just all the CDNs they recommended you use if you're going to use a CDN.
UI kit is a thing that it's built on top of, and then Tailwind is, the main kind of thing it works with. Okay, no problem. So you're building some kind of blog post, a FastHTML blog post thing. And okay, I see. So you want to build a card that would like show all of your blog posts. Here's an example of a blog post. Is that the idea?
Exactly. So when we go, we've
Do
got
you
that
have
list,
like a
and
picture or something of a blog post card that you're roughly trying to match, or is just going to be doing it out of your head?
just doing it out of my head. I don't have a
Cool.
particular look. I just want it to look okay. So my thought is kind of image on the left with all the description and title and author and all that stuff on the right.
Okay, cool. So there's a function called show in FastHTML, which calls display.html. Display.html is actually identical to what %% does. So that just inserts HTML directly into the DOM. And the HTML it puts in is a fast tag that has been converted to HTML. So in this case, you've got a string. So to XML on a string just returns a string, but it's escaped. On the other hand, if you had a p tag, for example, so that's a fast tag, it would create that. So that's all show does. Okay, cool. Great. How do we get started with Franken UI, the fast HTML version? I guess there's not much docs yet. So how do I kind of see what's there? Look at the source or?
Yeah, I mean, you can actually, I mean, the docs isn't, fleshed out, but all the stuff that is there are in the docs.
Okay,
Need more
cool. Let's
prose,
take a
but
look.
it's a good way.
fh-franken UI. Cool. So do I start with
We've got
components?
a core.
Or
Almost
okay.
everything is in core. That needs to
In
change, but
core.
for now,
Great.
everything is a core. And so
Right.
if we scroll down, we can scroll down past this and we can get to where basic component starts, and here's where everything starts. And so we can see that, if you want an alert, that's
Okay.
how you do it.
Here's a button.
Buttons. There's two things
Buttons.
in buttons,
Do I
which
get to
is
see a
we're gonna
button? Yes. Okay,
we
so
do
here
we
are
see all
buttons.
kinds. And what you'll see is there's this button which just creates a button with type button with the UK button class that's required. But
And I see it
can
gives me a kind
also
of a hover effect when I go over it, so that must be part of the Franken
yep.
UI. And the UK is for UI kit, which is what Franken UI is built on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can we have a
And you
quick
can
look at that?
actually see in a lot of the classes it'll say like UK-button because those classes are from some of those
Okay.
classes are from UI kit. A lot of them
I
are.
see. So when we say we've wrapped Franken UI, we've kind of wrapped, I see, this does look quite different. So Franken UI is kind of styling UI kit nicely, just like shadcn actually styles something called radix. Radix is actually what shadcn uses underneath. Okay, cool. So rather than looking like that, it looks like that. Okay.
Now, the primary and the primary
Yes.
class is blue and the secondary is gray. That's just because the CDN that we've loaded is the blue theme. But
And you've
there's
got
a dozen
things
or
ending
so
in
themes.
T, so they'll be types, in enum types. I guess that gives you some more convenient autocomplete or whatever, but could you also put a string here, I
You
assume?
can put a string, you can put a tuple if you'd like. If you've got a bunch of things and you just want to do a tuple, the tuple can be some enum, some strings. It can all be a string.
Let's just take
You
a
can
look.
stringify it
So
regardless.
button T, okay, here's button T. Can you do enums? I don't remember.
You
Oh,
can. It has a
no.
whole bunch of stuff in there.
Or is it a list? Yeah, list them. Okay, I see. So button T, and I could press tab and press, oh, that's annoying. So we're not getting, okay, we should try to get better autocomplete because,
Yeah, we're getting the stuff that
okay, we
is,
still see them at least,
yes, we see
primary.
them, but we also get all the string stuff as
So if I
well.
type SC tab, there we go, and it does secondary for me. And that's
And
that, and then, okay. And you're automatically, presumably behind the scenes, going to convert that to the string that's needed. That's why this works. Okay, and that means class, but you can't write class in Python because it's a reserved word, so we use CLS. Okay, great. So I guess should I show a button maybe?
yeah, let's show a button.
to a button. So I type button, I type parentheses, and then you said CLS equals button t.primary. Ah, not bad. Okay.
Cool. So we've got a button.
I guess we could look at some more of these things. Okay, so you've got headings. Okay, so they're just headings. So is it, okay, so let me guess. You have imported this after common, and it
yes,
looks like you've replaced H1 with, okay, with
correct.
your own version. Cool.
That's right. And the reason
So H1,
did it
this is a heading. Okay, go ahead.
reason it did it that way is because this gives you the option to say, I just want to use Franken UI stuff. I do an input,
Yeah.
it'll be Franken UI styling. But you
Yeah.
can also say from Franken UI, import Franken UI as
Yes.
FUI or whatever, and get
Yes,
the other
exactly.
functionality if you want.
Great. No, I think it's lovely. Okay. Super. So that's our headings. Okay, there's various containers. Okay. Article title. Okay, no examples of forms. Oh, here we are. One big example of all the form options. They look pretty normal. I see a lot of the time you use things called muted. That's just, I see it's kind of things designed to be a little bit in the background.
Yep.
Bit
And
grayed
those are
out.
really nice if you have like titles, like you have a title and you have like a little subheader, either on a card or
Okay,
description. Those are very nice. Very common for that
great.
kinds of lists.
Okay, so I see. Striped list. That's cool. UK list striped. Modals, navs. Okay.
Now that spacing flexbox grid section is actually,
Yes.
an interesting one. So we have a grid class which does adds that styling, and that's useful for a lot of things. And if you scroll down a little bit more, that works pretty well with things like the fully spaced div. And all that's
Okay.
doing
Is there
is
an
it's
example of a grid somewhere here? Or
I
should we
don't
create one?
unfortunately have that docs
Let's
yet.
do it. That's
Um,
fine. So
cool.
let's create a little grid. Show grid. Okay, and what do I do? Just put in a,
Put a couple of divs in there with, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, looks like it's completing okay. You can do some divs with some H1 tags.
okay, something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. And then we can tell the grid how many columns we want. So we can say cols equals 2 if we want.
Is this, should we be putting these in,
I think we need to put them in each of those in a div for it to,
put each of them in a div? Okay, why don't I just say div?
because I believe the grids.
Oh, that looks better. Okay.
Perfect. And so we can tell it, we can pass it the number of columns if we want. So we can say cols equals 2, cols equals 3, whatever we want to do.
Okay, cols. All right, so cols equals 2. I see.
So that starts exactly halfway over.
I meant to
Now
ask you
this
about that. I
works.
think something that might be nice if we didn't say cols equals would be to default to the number of things you pass in. That is quite a common thing to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Could do that.
Okay.
Make that change. And then another thing that's nice to kind of build on this is if we add something else into one of the divs, say like this, we have this as a heading, and we can add a paragraph tag or something like this as well. We can replace that div with a fully spaced div, as an example.
Hang on, what did I mess up here? I might just, okay, div, this is a heading, div, this is a heading, this is a paragraph. Okay, sorry, go ahead. So you're saying replace the
So change
div with a
that fully
fully
spaced div.
spaced div. Okay.
Now we can run that.
Get this up a little bit before I go crazy. Ah,
So what that did is it just gave you a div, but it applied some flex classes for you. And there's also a left aligned div and a right aligned div. And it's just making some of the common flex things available to you. Be a little bit easier.
Okay, it's almost like a grid in a grid, the way it seems to have laid it out.
Yeah, you can also do left line. If you actually put like fully spaced div, kind of open close parentheses in a cell, you can see exactly what it generates without anything, and you can really see that that's what it does for you.
And I saw you mentioned Flexbox Froggy, which is a very good way to learn Flexbox for anybody who hasn't tried it.
I think I learned Flexbox from this when you told me about it, so it worked well.
Good. Yes, and that is worth mentioning, is that you are not somebody with a extensive experience in front-end design and stuff like that. So like you've learned it as you go. So people should not feel too intimidated that this is impossible. Stuff like this, you can learn it, particularly in like when you've got a Jupyter notebook, you can kind of fiddle around with it quite quickly, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and that's kind of what I recommend is, when you're working with stuff, you can see fully spaced divs, and then you can put it in a cell like you did, and we can see, well, what did it actually do? Like, what does a label input do? Well, it creates a label, and then it creates an input. It puts them next to each other.
Okay, so should we do that? So here is a labeled range. So, okay. And do I need this? What's this container equals, Bizzo?
So the container says it's going to create a label in a range, and it's saying, do you want to put this in anything? It's pretty common. If you just have
So
a
you've
couple of
wrapped
cells,
it here
put in a form.
in a form.
Another common thing would be to wrap it in a div. If you want them both in a div, something like that.
Okay. I mean, it's not necessarily easier than writing that. And it seems to have wrapped it in a div automatically.
I think the default is a div.
Yes,
you
container
can set it
equals div. Okay.
And where that particularly comes nice is if you're starting to create a form and you've got a lot of layouts, particularly the default being a div, you're trying to create layouts and you're laying out these things in different shapes with grid and flexbox. It's nice to say, have the grid apply to the label and the input together, which is why sometimes you want them put together in a div rather than two separate components that would get fully spaced.
Okay, let's see that. So if we say create a form which has a grid, which has, say, a couple of these, something like that?
Yeah.
Ah, nice.
So now each of those are the two divs. It put them in their separate grids, and you can put that label input if you want, or checkbox, or whatever you want. And so I think that's a fairly common thing to do. Like maybe you want city, state, zip, and a grid of 3.
Okay, so if I did like this, cool. So because there's two cols, it's moved them to the next line, the next ones. That's cool. All right, I like it. Okay, so those are the labeled ones. And so navbar. Okay, looks like we don't have an example of that. So we could maybe try one.
Yeah, I think navbar and sidebar are probably tabs are probably the area that I need to do the most improvement of. But
okay, what's the basic idea? Do I just navbar container, navbar nav? Where do I start?
We can do here.
Ah, looks like you've got UK on the front of them. Are those UKs going to disappear at some point?
Yes, at some point they'll disappear. So
okay,
yes,
so
I think now we want UK nav.
UK nav
bar.
Okay.
So in UK nav bar, we can put an LNav and an RNav. And so an LNav is going to be the navigation stuff on the left. So for now we can say...
Is it UK LNav?
All lowercase. Lowercase LNav equals...
I see.
And let's just put like an H1 tag. Maybe we'll say, maybe that's our logo or something that we're actually putting there.
Okay, it looks like it's done some stuff. Does that look about right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that doesn't look right. What else do we need?
Let's see. I believe LNAV and RNAV are supposed to be lists. So this is where I need to improve some things here.
No
So we
problem.
make that a list, and I
No.
think
Or a tuple. List is okay.
it should be okay.
That's okay. Let's come back to that one when it's ready. So we'll say that one's not ready yet. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think that's helpful. I feel like I've got a good start there. So then maybe I will show off my new little thing, which I've got some code floating around to steal here. Grab that. Yeah, maybe let's grab all. Okay. So we've got it's not this is not exactly only Jupyter specific, but this is going to work best from Jupyter, I think. So basically, we can create a fast HTML application as usual. And for those who haven't seen it yet, instead of running serve to run the server inside a Jupyter notebook, as do we say GPUV, Jupyter Uvicorn. And the thing I'm going to show now first time is pusher, which is maybe best explained by simply showing it. So this is now running a server, and by default, it runs it on port 8000. So we can have another, we'll go to localhost :8000. Local, cool. So we have a fast HTML page, but it's currently empty. So to make it not empty, we can push things to the page. And that's going to push it to my application. And so let's create a paragraph with hello world and a bold I, put it in a container with an H1 ahoy. Actually, interestingly, I guess it's going to use Franken UI for all this, since that's what's imported. And there you go. So you can see it pops in straight away. So there's some like nifty tricks here. So you can see our contents is what we stored here. This is our contents. So we can actually change our contents. So for example, we can add ooh to it. And then if we push our contents, it knows whereabouts that is on the page, and it will only replace that. So it's not going to delete the H1. There you go. So there's a few little handy additions. So for example, you can say contents.set, and that will replace the children in contents with this. And it will also add these attributes to it. So if we do that, pop, there you can see it go. So this is kind of like, you can like do some fun little things like import IPy widgets as widgets, pop open a color picker, pick a nice bright red, and then push that. There you go. So far we've been pushing contents or contents.set. Contents.set returns itself. But here we're not pushing any change to contents. We're just pushing a new thing. So it's going to replace the whole page, as you see. So here we're going to create a paragraph and create a card with a paragraph in it. Fair enough. Okay, so this is where I probably want to actually restart and use, this is all in Pico, so I'm just going to use Pico because that's the card I have. Okay, so here's a Pico card. And what I did here is I added random numbers to the header and the footer just to kind of like simulate like some state of, to form with some boxes checked, or we've just loaded a model into it, or some long running thing. So the reason that this set stuff is interesting is now if I say c.set and push that, it's just going to modify C. It won't modify the stuff around it. So you can see here the random numbers are 17 and 37. So if I push that, they're still 17 and 37. So push that, they're still 17 and 37. So I'm hoping that you and I are going to be able to experiment with this a bit today, Isaac, by building your blog card here. And I guess it's not like, why do this rather than show? Well, the thing is, this is an actual running application, so like maybe we won't need it for your thing so much today, but like you can add, like, well, let's try it, right? So we could say app dot, so we could, what was we say, at RT def foo return, well, since we're doing random ints, for instance. Okay, so there's a handler. And let's give this an ID, call it C, whatever. Okay, and so we've got our card, header, footer, and then maybe after our card, we will add a button with an hx get equals foo, and we'll have an hx target of C. Okay, so let's, yeah, so once you start getting stuff like that, right? The nice thing is, so click me. Do anything, why not? Click me.
Oh, the target, I think, needs to have the,
Oh, a hash.
yeah.
Thanks. There we go.
I guess that shows why this is so nice, because you can iteratively fix things.
Yeah, exactly. F my random number, change that. And I don't have to refresh anything, right? Which is nice. So you've kind of got this ability to like, and then I could, you know, like if I gave this an ID as well, right? Then, you know, I could kind of do interesting stuff like say, oh, I don't want it to be a button, you know, or whatever. So it could be like push button. So maybe it's actually, no, I actually want it to say clock me and whatever, right? And so as long as the ID matches, or as you've seen in the previous cases, you using the actual Python variable that's the same, you can see it's replaced it, but it still works, right? No, in that case, that's interesting. I forgot to add the target, so that shows it's working because it's replaced itself. hx underscore target. So fix the target. Oh, that's fixed. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I think this is exciting. I don't think there's been a way to create Python web applications quite like this before. So let's try combining our two new things together. So I'll say server.stop. Oh, okay, and that's now dead. And maybe we'll just grab this. Oh, actually, maybe the other one thing I will say is instead of having a separate browser tab open, you can also use our new-ish HTMX thing here, which basically puts an iframe. So now if I said CTS plus equals ooh, you can see it's exactly the same thing, but it's happening inside our iframe. So that can be nice if you're using a laptop with a bit less screen real estate, or you're just trying to do something small. Okay, so I'll copy that up to Isaac's blog, paste it here, that. Okay, restart.
All right.
Okay, let's get this going. Okay, great. And so we should be able to, for example, grab this card equals all that, and then say push card. And I'm guessing that's because, oh, the thing we're pushing into is going to need the headings actually. So that's a bit of a change here. So all this bizzo,
So
we should add to our app.
We can get all those with if you
Yes.
do theme with a capital T, theme.blue.headers, I believe, and then that's a function that will return all those headers for you.
Wow,
You can pass
nice. Put that in my
right
headers.
into your app.
Ah,
exactly. And that blue was the theme. There's other theme colors. I like the blue one, but
okay.
Take a look at the different ones there.
So I might just grab that server.stop. put it here. Restart. Run those. This is fascinating. Oh, look at
There we go.
that. Cool. And I guess you would want this in some kind of container. Should we put a container around it to kind of get a better view of what it would look like in a real
Yeah, we can.
page?
There is a container that does exactly that, so we can just
Okay, container.
add container. And if you look at it, what the container does, it just adds the container class.
I was
And there's
expecting
also
it to
that
add a bit of a top
container
margin
T.
as well. So that's probably not the best way. I should do this, right? Okay.
And there is a container T class, so you can
Yes.
look and what's in there. We can do like class equals container T dot small.
And this would
Which gives
change
it.
like the responsive thingies or something, is it?
No, this would change the amount of padding, how the size of the container.
Okay. Cool. What do you recommend
So
we use here?
let's use small or extra small,
Oh, I'm in the wrong
and that's going to
place.
need to go in the card. Let's start with extra small. I don't think these cards need to be super big.
Okay, so sorry, what am I doing? Ah, CLS, of course, I knew that.
CLS equals container T dot X small.
Sorry. Container T dot X small. Didn't seem to do anything. X large.
Oh, the container might be bigger than the. Do X small and make that screen a little bit larger. I think it's being responsive for you.
Oh, yeah. I see. It's the width. So it doesn't. How do I get a bit of padding on the top as well? Is that a?
So one way to do it is to use a Tailwind class, which would be MT for margin top.
Okay. I'm used to Pico, that like when you put something in a container, it kind of does all that for you. But that's cool. So how do we? And I think you said you can use like tuples to combine.
I like to use a tuple. You can also add.
So would I just use a string here?
Yep, MT-4 or something, maybe.
Okay. Cool.
So
okay, works for me.
And that MT is just that's just margin MT top. Margin top, and there's MB, there's MX for margin along the x-axis, and Y. Those are some small things that are handy to know.
Okay, so if I were to see this actually change, then here's my extra small. And if I change that to extra large, presumably that'll, yeah. Okay, okay.
That's kind of nice because you wouldn't want that huge space on each side when you get to the size. But
all right,
cool.
Okay. Great. So I want to be able to see your stuff. So I'll get rid of some of that. Get rid of that. Okay, let's start building up your card then.
So I guess we start with the card class.
Okay, and the card class has a header, a footer, body class, header class, footer class. Okay, and some children.
Yeah, so I guess to start with, we can start putting the image in. That's probably going to be the one that's the wrong size for everything. So we can use IMG for image. I believe this one might be just straight from FastHTML, if I remember right. And we can put our SRC, our source, is equal to our FM dot image.
Okay.
And it really went crazy for us, I guess. I guess we can see what
All right,
it does.
So should we try that?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. So that is a card with an image. It's definitely a little bit larger than we'd like. So one way to do this is we could use an inline style. So to image, we could pass style equals, but like width, I don't know, 200 pixels or 100 pixels. See what that looks like. Or width and height.
Height as well?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that for now. It might squish things, but for now, we get a nice square for us.
Or like if we just didn't have the height, would it make the same thing? Okay, good.
I believe it's the same thing because it happens to be a square image.
Yep.
Cool. So I guess now we can add a title. So I don't know, probably an H2 or an H3 or an H4. I don't know exactly which size is going to look best, but we can try that. Okay. It looks a little big. Let's try an H3. Cool. So now what I'd like is I'd like that title to be over to the right of the card rather than kind of a square card. I'd like a kind of a wider card. And we can do that with a left aligned div. So if we put our image in our H3 in an L left aligned div, it's going to put all those components.
So
It's L aligned. L is abbreviated. Yeah, there we go.
Got it. Like so.
Yep. And so that puts them there. Doesn't look, cool. Let's can we look at that a little bit wider and see what it looks like? The app looks like if we expand it. Okay. Yeah. So I'd say maybe we make that title a little bit smaller. Even we can try an H4 tag or something. Cool. We can add.
We want a bit of spacing between them.
Sure. Let's
do. Would you use like the Tailwind spacing? Isn't there like an SX or something for that? Or
there's a space dash X, so we could do space dash X, or we could on the image we could just add a margin, an MR for a margin to the right and give it like a 3 or 4 pixel.
What would you do?
Thing. For now, let's just add the margin to the image, and so we can do CLS equals MR dash 4.
Okay.
Cool. Great. So, all right. So now that we've got that, we can, I guess, add the description. See what that looks like. We add the description. I'm sure it'll be too much for it. So this, so what's happening here is we've got the left line div with the image and the H4, and then the description is next. So this is one layout we could do. Let's instead move the closing tag of the left line div to after the paragraph, and we'll see kind of that paragraph. Move. And now let's put both the H4 and the paragraph in a div.
Just before you do, I actually want to see what this is. Okay, so it's a flex box with left aligned. Okay, so go ahead.
Exactly. So we're going to have the image as one item, and then everything else is another item. So let's put the H4 title and the paragraph tag in its own div.
And what does that basically do? Is that's just going to change how Flexbox treats them? Is that the idea?
Exactly. And so now instead of it being image, then title, then description,
I see.
it's going to say image and then everything else.
Okay. I get it.
Perfect. So I guess next we can add our author and date.
I just want to try to make it a bit clearer in my head. So, okay, so that's the div. L-aligned div has an image in it, which has a div in it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So the next thing we can do is we can put.
Is this one of these things where muted would help, by the way? Feels like one of your things where it's like, oh, this is a bit less.
We could try muted. I was going to use it for the author and date.
On the paragraph, is that right?
Exactly. You could put it really on anything with text, and this would be a text font. So text
font
dot muted small. Not a whole lot of fonts yet. I'm trying to be really picky about which ones make it in there.
Nice.
And that's kind of the difference between text T, which is going to have a lot more options. My hope is that text font will just have 4 or 5 that are going to cover a lot of your usage when you're moving fast.
Okay.
So right now there's only 2.
No worries.
So great. So I guess we've got the title, we've got the description. The last thing that we absolutely need, I guess, is a button to tell people how to click onto it. So we can add a button that says, I don't know, read more or click here or something.
Why would you use a button there? It feels more to me like you would, I don't know, click on the card.
You could make the card a link as well. I like putting a button just because I like putting a small button on the right just so it's clear. Okay, but I typically also make the image a link.
Got it.
So I don't know.
All right. So you want the button? Okay, you got
in with the p tag.
In with this p
Sorry,
tag here?
right after it. Right after it.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. So there's a start.
Okay, so we need some spacing there as well.
And what I think we can do is we can use another class here, and we can put the button in a fully spaced div of its own.
Right. Why do we do that?
Because we're going to put the button all the way to the right, and to the left of the button, we'll put all our different the categories that are up there as little label things.
The tags, the categories, I see.
So if we add the categories, and we can use a list comprehension.
Now, if I do this now, it shouldn't change anything, right? It doesn't. Can we?
Right.
I want to try using this space thing because I wanted to add a bit of space between our bits here. And my understanding is I could do that.
Yes, so you could do
here.
Exactly.
Plus
and
equals
space dash y dash, I don't know, 3 seems like a good number. I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and it feels like the image should be, I don't know, probably top aligned, and by default it's trying to be bottom aligned. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah, I think it's probably, if we look at the left aligned div, it's probably actually centering it with flex is my guess. The default I set.
Okay.
So yeah, that's probably something.
Is that what UK flex middle means?
Exactly.
And how would we override that?
So at this point, if we want to override it, we can create our own div with our own flex classes. And so we could create a new function that just takes in a div and then passes a tuple of flex classes, or just copies that string without them and changes the flex middle to flex top.
L aligned, we could just do L aligned div, oops, L aligned div top, for example.
Exactly.
Return div class equals UK flex, blah, 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 UK flex top, like that?
Yep, I believe it's top. Yep. Perfect.
Okay, does that look right?
Yeah, the one thing that's nice when you create these functions, if you're using a string, at the end of that top, if you just add a space, then when you pass classes, it doesn't cause issues.
That makes sense.
That's caused a lot of
maybe we should
add
a
debugging
space
on my side.
Maybe we should add a space if there isn't one. Add classes.
Okay, so
oh, there we go.
Do that. Perfect.
Okay, that now feels like it needs a margin top. Doesn't more like that.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. We can add our tags now, and so what we can do is we can create a div.
Are they going to be pills?
Yes, little pills.
I feel like it's interesting. I kind of feel like I want to use show now to kind of do this little section. So
let's do it.
Tags.
So we can use a label.
Okay, label.
I guess we can start with
maybe we should do one first. So we have a category which will be FastHTML. So let's just do a single one. So we're going to do label, for instance, cat, and then if we show that, and then let's start to build it up. Oh wow, they're nice. Okay, is that how Franken UI tends to do pills? There isn't a separate pill thing.
I haven't seen a separate pill one.
Cool.
I saw this and it looked good enough to be a pill to me.
Definitely.
So
that looks nice.
That's
Great.
what I've been using. So yeah, so now I guess we just changed that label cat to, label O for O in categories and see what that looks like.
Yeah, I kind of tend to like doing map for that kind of label. And so it's going over fm.categories, I guess. Okay, so I guess this is where we might want to do something like this, maybe, and like class equals something like that.
Yeah, space X in this case. But
why didn't that work?
Space. Oh, do you need a star? You need because you're
My bad.
Need a star before the map in the div.
It actually looks like I don't. The issue was I shouldn't have had a star for the show.
Okay.
But that is curious.
Yeah.
I guess at some point I made it support generators, which I forgot even doing. But
That's super handy, so that's nice.
oh yes, so
Okay.
yeah, so that's nice. Who can be bothered pressing Shift 8? Okay. Okay. I guess that's it, right? So
That's it.
add the
So we put
incline
that
to
in our
kind of make a little function then called def tags cats return cats show tags fm dot categories. Okay. Oops. Okay. So I guess you're going to tell me to put them here, right?
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So if we make this wider, it might. Let's see. Can we look at this? Is this a problem with it being too big, or it's
I mean, they do look too big
okay?
to me. I feel like tags should be much smaller, and they were much smaller here in our browser, our Jupyter.
Oh,
Is there a way to kind of have that whole div now be?
so I'm wondering if Pico is interfering. Can we turn the Pico headers off?
Oh, right. Oh my Lord. Oh, how embarrassing. Okay, yes.
So I think it's like
Server.stop, Pico equals false.
see if that is better.
Okay, restart. Oops, run this.
Okay, a little bit better. It's still fairly large.
Yeah, still fairly large. And
Interesting.
you also, I think, the spacing should be the same. Can you just say space -2? Because we kind of want, no, you can't. Do you have to say space Y2 space X2? No, that doesn't work
So
either. Do you see what I'm trying to say here is like I want, when it's wrapped, it should have the same spacing between them as it does
oh, I
around
see.
them.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost feel like if you have if you're on like a nice a wider screen like you normally would have in a browser on the computer, like I'd almost want um this kind of layout. And then if I go to like a much thinner screen, like a tablet or a phone, I would almost want a different card that's more vertical spaced, with the image on top
Okay.
and not
I mean,
there.
I
So I
mean,
would
I feel
almost
like,
want the
oh, also we need a bit of spacing, a bit of margin next to our button, I guess. Or maybe we could just add it, like, I think, can't you say like margin X, something like that? Yes, you can. Okay, so that's what it looks
oh,
like. It feels, I don't know, it feels funny to me having, we've got all this space for the tags. It feels like we should be using it. There's all this gap underneath.
so what we could do is above the read more and the tags, we could add in our author and date.
Okay.
And that again feels like a nice thing for the fully spaced
Okay,
div
so
that
we're going to
was
put
about
that
right now.
above our fully spaced div. Okay. And would you put them next to each other then, rather than
Um,
maybe one P with both?
yeah. Let's try that, see what it looks like. Probably want the small muted text here as well, at least.
Okay. Do you though? Huh.
Um, what if we remove the muted text from the I mean, do that too.
I feel like it should be something different.
Yeah, I wonder if we should get rid of the muted text from the description and leave it on for the author and
Okay.
the title. Like I'd rather have that like nice and readable.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well I think maybe in this where that space X2 is, can you add we tried to add space Y there as well, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Can I
I
just do
think we
that?
can add that there.
No, it doesn't work. Okay. Space -Y2. Okay. Nice.
That's looking pretty nice.
Maybe a bit less. Yeah.
I think we can maybe make the height of that button a little bit smaller. Just
Okay.
so we
How do
can
I do
add a
that?
class there, which is h-, I don't know, 6 maybe. And that can be a tuple, or we can just use addition. Again, I like the tuple approach. It makes it nice and
So what do I type? Sorry?
h-6 maybe. Height of 6. See what that looks like. That change anything?
I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it should just say read
Okay.
rather than read more.
Yeah, let's try that. Okay, well,
And what's
that's
causing
I
that to
guess.
be right aligned there?
What's causing the button?
Yeah.
And the
I
fully
guess that's what
spaced
you want.
div.
It's what, sorry?
The fully spaced div. The tags are on the left.
Oh, of
It's fully
course.
spaced with the button.
I see. So if we had more stuff, it would be in the middle. And okay, yes, makes sense.
Exactly. So this is pretty good, I guess.
And then would you have this whole card be like a fixed width or something, or like how would you? Because you're presumably going to have a few of these cards.
Yeah, I mean, you could put this card into a so there's a something called UK-width-expand.
Mhm.
And so we can put that. I don't have anything special for it, and so I might put that in with the div with all the text. And so I just tell it, take up all the space that you can, and all the cards were. So in the next div,
Yeah.
in this
Okay, I won't
right
do that
next,
now,
I'd
but
say expand that, and then I put it into all the cards into a container that's a certain size, and so they all fill up whatever container size it has.
should we call that close enough for now? Or is there anything else worth showing off through our little
No,
demo today?
I think this is a good starting demo.
Okay, me too. I feel like I've got a lot to learn about Tailwind and Franken UI still. And probably the best way for us to do that, I know, you're building a whole bunch of demo apps, including replicating the ones that are on the shadcn and Franken UI site. So I guess that'll be probably the best way for me and others to learn, would be to see how those are actually built. Or maybe just start with one of those that I like and, rather than starting from scratch, start from something that already looks nice and copy and paste.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those have been great. I've been doing a few things where I just find, no, not a whole website, but I just said, okay, here's kind of a nice tutorial card or a testimonial card that I kind of like. Let me make something kind of similar, and that can be a nice, small thing to do as well. But yeah, I think I'm hoping to have some guides a little bit on the tutorial on like Tailwind, for example. Like a lot of this was like, oh well, here's this margin thing, and here's the spacing thing, and I think there's a half-page kind of explainer on what all these different acronyms are and what they do,
Claude helps a
and when
lot
you
with this
might want to
too.
use them. Claude is probably how I learned it mostly. So
Great.
yeah, that's absolutely right.
Well, thank you, Isaac. And well, this is becoming a bit of a theme. Hamel did a dev chat on his first week, and so are you. So also, welcome to Answer.AI. Welcome to Answer.AI dev chats.
Oh,
Thanks
thank you.
very
That's
much for
great.
that excellent guided tour, and I feel like I've learned something.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you.